You're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, where we talk about everything connected to that galaxy far, far away. I'm Dom Bettinelli of the StarQuest Network, and I wanted to start this show briefly with a note that this is an episode we recorded a few months ago to thank our patrons at sqpn.com/give for their generosity in making this and all the shows at StarQuest possible. We gave them early exclusive access, but now, a few months later, we're making it available to you to show you one of the benefits of becoming a patron of StarQuest. Our panelists had a great discussion, and so now we bring you this show, and we hope you enjoy it.
You're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars.
Hello there.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
That's not how the Force works.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force, and I fear nothing.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Hey everyone, I'm Angela Sealana, aka The Bendu, and you're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, where we talk about everything connected to that galaxy far, far away. From movies to books to TV shows and more, we're looking at the deeper themes and meanings found in Star Wars. And today, we are daring to create a top 10 ranking of Star Wars characters. So the courageous crew members who have joined us for this mission are, we have, first of all, Master Ikrit, also known as Thomas Salerno. Are you ready, Thomas?
I hope so, Angela.
I don't know. We'll see. And how could we do this without old Ben, aka Mike Creavey? Hello, Mike.
Hey, how's it going? This is my first time back on the show in like 3 months. So at the time of recording, let alone when this is heard. So,
well, we're totally stoked and ready to do this, guys. So yeah. I think we should just dive right in.
Nice.
This is going to be the method to our madness, because I know everyone is wondering, how in the world are they going to do this? Each of us has our own secret rankings, which we have not revealed to one another, but we are going to work together in this podcast to attempt to compile a collective top 10 list. And I suspect there will be much debating, at least respectful conversation. And out of each of our lists, we are actually going to nominate 5 characters as honorable mention and 5 characters toward the final top 10. All right?
All right.
So we are going to start introducing our nominations one slot at a time for the top. And we're just going to get right into it. Okay, so Thomas, I'm going to ask you to go first. Give your first nomination for the top 10.
So this would be my number 5 then.
You could do it however order you want, because I suspect it's going to be just all over the place for everybody.
Then I'll probably do the top slot first, because it's a very obvious pick. And so I might as well get it out of the way first. And that is Han Solo.
All right.
I pick Han because I just love his character arc. I love his arc from being, the scoundrel with a heart of gold to being a legitimate hero and general of the rebellion. And of course, his romance with Leia is really great. Everybody loves Han Solo, so I couldn't not pick him for my top slot. He's just cool. And yeah, I'm just a big fan of his arc, especially in the original films.
All right. Well, that's Thomas's nomination there. Mike, how about you?
Mine is Obi-Wan Kenobi, which might be kind of obvious to people. I really did. Well, as we'll get there, I actually almost had a tie for number 1 and number 2 as we'll get there. And this was the silly thing I wrote down. I was like, he is the character who made old folks home canon. And so, that's true. And Father, if Father Fett is listening to this, I mean, I had to bring up episode 2 as quickly as I could, like to actually have Obi-Wan Kenobi talk about rerouting a signal through the old folks home. I'm like, what? I've rewound that so many times. I'm like,
Is that what he says in that scene?
Yes, he does.
I never realized that's what, because to me it always sounded garbled, and I could never understand what he was saying.
I wanted it to be garbled, but if I was in the captions and like I've looked at it, it's like, no, that's. Yeah, there's an old folks. There's at least one. I mean, there's got to be at least one old folks home on Coruscant. But
does he mean the temple?
Well, that's who knows? But I guess the more serious kind of reason I put down, like, because I was trying to think, it's like all these different reasons. I've got my Obi-Wan hilt here, which is my pride and joy, for my collection here. But really, what it came down to was, in a weird way, it was kind of a crossover with Batman. And what I mean by that is specifically the in the Dark Knight, when Batman's got Joker, hanging on that string thing, whatever, the fight at the end. Mm-hmm. And Joker just says very kind of triumphantly, and he's like, "You really are incorruptible," and this idea of like he's tried everything he can to get Batman to like, be something other than what he really is, and he's not perfect by any means. He's got a lot of problems, but like he's incorruptible. Like he's not going to become a bad guy, and I just, with Obi-Wan, I love it because it's like through all his whole journey, like he's got plenty of issues. He's got a dark side, but like, I think I just like that, when it's all said and done, he's not going to turn on you. There's like a fidelity there. So anyway, that's what came to mind sort of at the core, I think, of what I really like about him at the end of the day.
All right. Well, one of the things that we haven't talked about yet is our criteria that we've used for this. So before I give my first nomination, Thomas, was this like favorites, or how did you select your nominations here?
I felt like for most of my picks, I went for characters, both of my top 5 and my honorable mentions, of characters whose journey I really appreciated, whose character arc really moved me in some way. Whereas because like anybody else, I could say, oh, Luke Skywalker's my favorite because he's cool. But I tried not to go for rule of cool. I tried to go with the stories that have impacted me as my criteria.
Nice.
Cool. All right. And Mike, how about you? Did you have a criteria, or did you just kind of,
I don't, I kind of, well, in a way, I decided to wing it a little bit. I did have a sense where I wanted to try to I wanted to be open to the whole canon, so I did have my top 10. I had a little bit of everything. I had some original trilogy. I don't know that I had anyone exclusively prequel era, but there's some crossover there. But it went through the original trilogy, prequel era, and sequel trilogy. At least with one person, it tends to be from those, and from some of the other sort of anthology films and other series and stuff like that. So I tried to kind of look broadly. And honestly, I think it was just the character, which isn't unrelated, I think, to what you were saying, Thomas, about journey for sure. But I think looking back on it, I think I was just focused more on sort of a static kind of like which characters really just leap out at me for various reasons, and why are they so appealing or compelling or believable, that kind of thing. And I should say, I immediately wrote can't rank Darth Vader. So for some people can. He probably would be at the top of my list. I deliberately did not put him on my list.
Yeah, same.
Because
I thought about it, category. But yeah,
that's just
like Luke Skywalker. He's kind of in his own category. Yeah,
that's sort of where I was at with that a little bit. But yeah.
Okay. Well, for me, my methodology here was not exactly scientific and not particularly emotive either, to be honest with you. When I hear top 10 characters, I think of, how many action figures are selling and, how many Google searches there are and all that. But also, I do think of character arc and connection to the audience and storyline and their their impact on the story. So for me, my first nomination is Caleb Doom, aka Kanan Jarrus.
Nice.
And the reason that, honestly, when I think of characters who grew through Star Wars and what we have seen in their story in the canon, he came to mind like almost immediately. And I think part of that is because of his, for those of you who aren't familiar with his story arc, I won't spoil too much, but he passes, and he has this very memorable passing that to me speaks of the mission. And, if Star Wars had a mission statement, like this was Kanan Jarrus. And just everything that he learns, the challenges and trials that he goes through as a young person, and then, as a kind of a parental figure, and finding himself again in a student situation to the teacher situation. It was all really just the full package, I think. So besides the cool factor, I have to say Kanan Jarrus is my nomination, my first nomination.
That's great, because I think he becomes almost like an ideal Jedi by the end of his arc with everything he's gone through. So that's a great pick.
Well, Thomas, how about you for your second nomination?
Okay, so I'm going to get another fan favorite out of the way, and that is Din Djarin, the Mandalorian. The Mandalorian has been one of those series that has just really connected with me on some kind of primal emotional level. And I can't really put my finger on what exactly that is, but I think a big part of it has to do with the father-son relationship between Din Djarin and Grogu. And I just love Din. And Din is another character almost kind of like Han Solo, where he goes from the rogue with a heart of gold to being this essentially a paladin, almost like heroic figure.
Yeah.
And he, but he's also this very caring individual, and he has these deep convictions about his Mandalorian beliefs and his faith and stuff. And I think that just brought so much, his story brought so much more like explicit religious imagery into Star Wars. The Mandalorian faith is so much more like tactile and sacramental than like the Jedi philosophy is. And just Din has been just a great embodiment of that. And I've loved seeing his journey through these seasons. And and I just love too that he kind of is that perfect blend of like the Knight Paladin and the Old West gunslinger, which is really cool.
Awesome. All right.
I'm laughing, Thomas, for two reasons. Because first of all, I don't know if you can see in the background here, I've got the Christ Bearer book right there on the shelf.
Ah, yes, so, the book I contributed to.
The lighting is not that great on it, but it's funny you should mention the Paladin, because the Have Gun Will Travel. It's like my family loves that old Western, and like I think after the very first episode of Mandalorian dropped back in 2019, that was like the first thing my dad said after he saw it. He's like, it's like Have Gun Will Travel in space. I said, yes, it totally is. So my number two, which as I hinted at earlier, was kind of a tie for first for a solid 5 minutes till I just arbitrarily made up my mind, but totally Palpatine. He's absolutely, like I said earlier, for me, like you take Vader off the table. It's hard to, like favorite movie villains. I mean, like Vader's probably one of, if not the most iconic movie villains of all time. Like he always makes those lists of, Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, Dracula, whatever, Darth Vader, Jekyll and Hyde, whatever. And but if you sort of take him out, Palpatine, just within the actual story, I wrote down for Obi-Wan, I wrote incorruptible. For Palpatine, I wrote irredeemable. He is absolute, like there's nothing in him that remotely wants to be good. Like he's like such a perfect embodiment of like, I absolutely am evil. And, even him, like the way he like he's getting fried with the whole like deflected lightning thing, and he's melting and all of that, and like, and I remember when I vividly like I remember when I saw Revenge of the Sith in theaters, and like when he's like, I can't hold it, and like he lets off, and like he's there, and he looks so completely weak. I'm too weak. I'm weak, and like I'm sitting in the theater, I'm like, he's faking it. Like I'm sitting there, like practically yelling. I was like,
yeah.
And then sure enough, it's so creepy if you watch that scene. Like, I mean, he's clearly hurt, you know, like he's warped for the rest of his life and everything, but doesn't care. And like the moment he blasts Mace out the window, he just very casually stands up, you know, and he's his posture. And like goes over and gets the robe. I'm like, oh, okay. Like it's just so creepy. And like I just think, you know, and Ian McDiarmid does such an amazing job at capturing, you know, and Lucas is writing everything, but just like all those like, you know, things from so much, you know, from fantasy, from sci-fi. Like you have, you know, the evil sorcerer, you have like the political mastermind, like just to have all that woven together. I just don't know how he did it, you know. And he's nothing like any of that, of course, in real life. Like it's just so funny to see the behind the scenes things with him and stuff. You know, he's, you know. So anyway, yeah, he's up there for sure. I always enjoy seeing him and love when they bring him back, you know, for like the animated stuff or just any time he shows up. It's great.
Gotta agree there. Gotta agree. My third nomination is going to be Anakin Skywalker.
Okay.
Now we can, of course, you know, I mean, I see where you're going with the whole you can't rank certain characters, but then to me that's like, well, then I don't know. That's going to be a lot of characters that you could put off to the side. So
right, it's like, well, you can't rank Yoda. Well, no, okay, you can rank Yoda.
More on that later.
We can rank them all. Yeah,
more on that later.
We can rank them all.
You know, this extends not just through the major films, you know, the episode films, but also the animated series of Anakin. Clone Wars gave us a whole, you know, different side of Anakin, a side that really endeared him to so many people, to where when Hayden Christensen came back for the Kenobi series, for example, and for the Ahsoka series, to really see this character so fully rounded and fleshed out in so many different emotive states and so many interior conflicts, besides, you know, again, the ones that we saw on film. I think, you know, Anakin, he's got to be in the top 10 just because ultimately he is like, yeah, I mean, he's besides being a pop culture phenomenon, he really is a character who teaches us a lot about the human condition and about good and evil and redemption, right? So that's
and he's
my
probably the single most central character right, to like the whole franchise, you could argue. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Thomas, where are we going?
Okay, so since Mike brought up Yoda, I might as well just use him now. Yes, my next pick is Yoda, which is funny because as a kid, he frightened me. When I first saw Star Wars on TV as a kid, puppets kind of creeped me out, the realistic ones, when I was a kid. Like, I was afraid of E.T., I was afraid of, you know, that kind of stuff. I was afraid of Yoda. So, but, you know, later, of course, when I watch films when I get older, not only do I appreciate the astounding puppetry and voice work of Frank Oz, but I just love Yoda, especially in the original trilogy. I love his character. Like, my brother and I are constantly quoting like Yoda's like things that he says when he's acting crazy towards Luke, you know, like mine or I'll help you not, you know, like cannot get your ship out, you know, like it's just I just love that this Jedi master who's been alive for 800 years is willing to act like a child in front of this guy, like, and he seemingly have a lot of fun doing it. Like you get to see more of Yoda's like fun side, and Empire Strikes Back, and I loved him. I felt that Clone Wars did a good balance of prequel Yoda with original series Yoda, and in fact, the first arc of Clone Wars features Yoda, which was really great.
Right.
But yeah, I love Yoda. I love his wisdom. I love that he is a Jedi that while he can use a lightsaber, he does not need to. And he very much represents that kind of archetype of the Zen master, or the kind of desert father from our Christian tradition, or the anchorite hermit type character. And yeah, I just love Yoda, and I just love that they brought him back too for the Last Jedi. Whatever else I could say about that film, I love that Yoda is in it. Oh, Skywalker, missed you have I.
This is one of my his laughing and stomping his little feet.
Yeah.
Yes. It was like this.
So yeah,
stunned.
That's awesome. Mike, how about you?
I had, this might be cheating, but I these two, I had to tie them because there's just, and I was thinking about it a lot, but Han and Leia. And because I was like, I can't rank Han and Leia. So, here we go again, me changing the rules a little bit. But what I think it's, they are great in their own right, but their relationship, I think, what I really like about it, a couple things. I made a little note I wrote down. Everyone knows this couple.
Yes.
was one row. It's like, you they have these fights or these arguments, but it's just like at the end of the day, it's like, God, they just work. Why? Why do they work so well? But what I really like, and I think there's maybe some wisdom in this. And I don't know how much of this, I feel like a lot of this was Larry Kasdan. But Lucas and Larry Kasdan between them, I think, in fleshing some of this out. But the dialogue, the banter between them, because they're always, the banter's through the original trilogy especially, constantly. But it's not, I think what you see so much of today, right, is the I'm up, you're down kind of thing, or like a lot of the stuff that gets really into some of the, for lack of a better term, kind of woke type stuff, or there has to be like abusiveness towards like femininity or towards masculinity, and you have to have this whole big agenda. And what I love about Han and Leia, they're always like at each other, but it's like, but Leia's like such an incredibly strong character who is who's just like a strong woman specifically, and it's through that kind of femininity that is a very like strong, motherly, even in some cases too, right? Especially in the sequel trilogy, I think they did that really well, where she's this like matriarch, of the whole resistance, and it just felt so right, like so believable,
yes.
And it was so her. But I love how like she puts him in his place, but not in a fundamentally disrespectful way. There's always like this, like, you got to get your crap together, man. Like, we need you, and it's,
she always has that thing of like, you could be better.
Right. Yeah. Like she's like, and maybe she could do it more tactfully, or he could certainly do it more tactfully. And I like just the little ways like they fight. Like, I love Empire's my favorite of the whole series, but like when 3PO comes up and he's like trying to appeal, like she's trying to reach him, and he's like, he's like, I turned it off. I don't want to talk to her. It's just so like, or the whole like, and he's so like, his bruised emotionalism is so on the surface when he's storming down the hallway, mad that she won't kiss him.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know. I love the two of them so much. And, I did enjoy that, getting to see them a little bit together, in Force Awakens, and that they recovered, some of that. I thought that was pretty fun. So I love them dearly.
New jacket. No,
right.
Same jacket.
Like, change your hair. She's, oh man,
totally.
They're probably my favorite movie couple.
Yeah.
So I grouped them together. I had to.
I love that. I would put a notch in that or put a sticky note up there for potentially doing that for a top 10. My next pick actually was Leia Organa. And I think you've pretty much, covered it as to why she deserves a place on the list. But, in addition to what you said, maybe just to add that her arc, at this point, we've seen young Leia, we've seen infant Leia, like just born Leia. We've seen little girl Leia. Yeah. We've seen teen Leia, in various animated settings. Mm-hmm. And we've seen, young woman Leia. Now we've seen old Leia, and we saw Leia pass away. We've seen the complete picture of Leia Organa. And so that's one of the biggies for me.
Yeah.
Thomas, where are we going next?
Well, speaking of favorite Star Wars couples, the next is one half of one of my other favorite Star Wars couples, and that is Hera Syndulla.
Oh, yeah.
And I struggled not to make my entire list mostly Rebels characters because I love that series. And in my book, almost every character in that show deserves to be on a list like this. But I really, really like Hera. I like that she, in many ways, she is like Leia. She's a strong rebel leader, but she also has this maternal side. We joke about her being space mom and stuff, but that's what I like about her. I love that she's the matron of this team, and she is the capstone holding that crazy sort of dysfunctional family of the Ghost crew together. Even though really she should be Spectre 1. I know that Kanan is Spectre 1 for some reason, but it's her ship and she basically runs the thing. But I love Hera, always have. And yeah, I don't know what else I can say about her is that she ties, in terms of favorite female characters in Star Wars, she ties with Leia for me. I love Hera a lot.
Wow.
Wowzers. I don't know how we're going to do this, guys. Okay. Mike, what's your next one?
We didn't plan this. My next one I had down was Kanan, who, of course, Angela already mentioned. And then, but all I would add is just that, and before anyone jumps to any conclusions, because what the note I had down was, realistically, this is the Jedi I would be. I think if I was in Star Wars, and I don't, but not he's a hero in his own right. It's like, wow, Mike's claiming he would sacrifice himself selflessly. It's like, well, hold on a minute. There's a lot of other things that we might want to gloss over, like his struggles with faith, his struggles with trust, with the clone troopers and stuff. Like I just think, and Freddie Prinze Jr., I've always loved him, in everything. Really, ever since he was in that Scooby-Doo movie, because he was just hilarious in that.
Oh, that's right.
Remember that?
Yes, yeah.
And I did find it funny that Sarah Michelle Gellar, his wife was I forget which. I always get my Inquisitors mixed up, but the third sister, whichever one she was in Rebels as well, voicing one of the Inquisitors, which was kind of fun. But I was thinking when families get to do Star Wars together. Now including the Mickelson brothers and anyone else who gets to both, whatever. But no, I think not exactly the whole scope, with Leia, as you said, Angela, but still seeing that arc, now that we got to see him go back and see him as the Padawan, Order 66. I did think it was weird that they just had Freddie Prinze Jr. voice him with no voice modulation.
Yeah, that was odd.
But to be fair, I think we all had that friend who came back after 6th or 7th grade whose voice was just there and has been there for the last 25 years. It happens. Those magical middle school summers for everybody but me, apparently. So yeah, no, I love his character, and I think you see such just a development, a real texture there with him, and basically everything Angela said earlier. So he's just a little further down my list.
Cool. And by the way, I didn't rank these, so I'm just giving them in random order. I didn't add that burden to my my task list. My next nomination would be Luke Skywalker.
Yay.
It's weird. We haven't really talked about him yet, but he's probably one of those other characters that you just thought, I can't rank him. A lot of the reasons that apply to Leia also apply to Luke. Not surprisingly, we see his total and complete life story arc. And of course, we spend a lot of time with him in the films, and there's something to be said for that in terms of top characters, I think. The fact that so many people around the world have gravitated toward Luke Skywalker, have wanted to emulate him, wanted to be him.
Yeah. I think everybody's wanted to be Luke Skywalker at some point in their life.
Yeah, in some form or fashion, right?
Yeah.
And the cool thing is that, with Din Djarin, whom you've mentioned, and Grogu, we've seen even more of Luke in full Jedi mode, and I love when we have these characters who we know so much about them, but we still want to know more. We still just would love to see more of them and pick their brain, at certain parts of their life. And so, yeah, Luke Skywalker.
Did you guys ever see that when you said about everyone wanted to be him at some point? Somewhere along the line, I saw Mark Hamill commenting that one of his sons, I guess, I forget how many kids he has, but his son at one point had said when he was like in his, when he was a kid or early teens or whatever, and like all these friends and all these kids at school, like, dude, like Luke Skywalker's your dad. Like, it's so cool. Luke Skywalker's your dad. And he's like, yeah, it's really cool when Luke Skywalker's like, do your math homework. It's like just complaining about like, he's still dad.
He's still dad. Yep.
He's not a real Jedi, guys. You know that, right?
Okay, so this means, if you've been keeping track at home, that everyone has given 4 nominations so far. I mean, Mike, maybe you've cheated a little bit. But okay, we have one more nomination slot for the top 10 characters that we're going to try to compile. So, Thomas, what is your final nomination?
Okay, this one is not a joke. I am totally serious. I love this character. C-3PO.
Yeah,
I'm surprised he hasn't shown up.
I would never think that's a joke.
Okay,
Absolutely.
good. Yeah, because I love C-3PO. Because some people say to me, oh, C-3PO's annoying. And I'm like, C-3PO's hilarious. I'm like, see, I constantly quote C-3PO because he's really funny. And I like that even when he's complaining, he's at his funniest.
Yeah.
When he's complaining, help, I think I'm melting. This is all your fault. Or, what's that thing? He says, R2 tricked me into coming this way. Malfunctioning little twerp. He's so... At the same time, like C-3PO, despite being a robot, he is very human. Because he has all the, on level, he's a nice guy. He's a good person, but he can also be petty. And like the rest of us, he can be petty and just mean sometimes, but he's a good friend to have. You want to be friends with C-3PO. And I just loved in Ahsoka when he shows up to that courtroom. But part of it too is because Anthony Daniels is such a great person and with the fan community and stuff, and when he comes up and he's like, how what do you mean you don't know who I am? I am C-3PO. That was the best thing ever. I'm like, yes. I'm like, and I love that even people like Chancellor Mon Mothma is on speaking terms with C-3PO. She just knows him and calls him 3PO, his nickname. So like,
I loved how he appeared. Like his appearance in Force Awakens is still one of my favorite because
that makes me laugh every time
as he comes in. Like,
yes,
Han Solo.
His jump scare. You probably didn't recognize me because of my red arm. He ad-libbed that, by the way. Yes, if you read his memoir, I Am C-3PO. He ad-libbed that line because Anthony Daniels was so mad about the red arm thing. He thought it was so pointless, and so he decided to just make fun of it.
I forget, was it him or was it Lucas? It was one of their ideas to I think it might have been Lucas to basically have his arms like that because it's like mimicking, like, imagine you're carrying a tray.
That, and I think it also resembles the robot from Metropolis, the famous silent film.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
3PO.
so like when you think of sci-fi robots, it's R2 and 3PO. I could have almost put them together, but R2 doesn't talk, and I just love 3PO's lines. Like, he's just, yeah. They are, R2 and 3PO are probably the best comedic duo in science fiction.
I love them.
That's awesome. Okay, Mike, what's your final pick?
I'm going to go with Ahsoka.
Yeah.
And I'm going with Ahsoka because she's how I hope my students turn out. Because I feel like I've already got my students at the phase of like the Clone Wars movie where like I'm done. Like I can't handle how annoying this person is right now. Like this, like the way the fans originally reacted to Ahsoka is kind of like me and like an average high school student. But there's always that glimmer of like, you know what though? With the right training and some maturing and this kid might be awesome. So no, that's a little mean, but in all seriousness, I mean, like I never actually saw the Clone Wars movie that everybody, brought all that up about. Like, I didn't see that till years later. I didn't get to watch Clone Wars till it had been out for a while. I just didn't have access to it, and I think when they put it on, it for like a year or so, maybe 2 years, they had it on Netflix.
Yeah.
And so that's the first time I started watching it. So that was only, I don't know, 2017, 2018, somewhere in there was when I first saw that. And that's when I knew who her character was, but I didn't judge her character because I didn't have anything to go off with it. I just thought, well, it's kind of weird that they're inserting this Padawan, in between episodes 2 and 3. Just kind of, that was my attitude. But now, she's just awesome, and I love where they've gone with it. I have a picture of her back here. Can't see it when we're filming here, but yeah, I think for so many reasons she's awesome, and I think there's a lot of potential too for her character, knowing that we would be led to believe she's passed on into the Force to some degree by the time of Rise of Skywalker, right? Because her voice is one of those at the end that Rey hears. But, we've still got, 20, 25 years in between where she's at now in the Ahsoka show and that. So there's so much more potential. I'm excited to see where they go.
Yeah. I also have Ahsoka as my last nomination. Again, not in any particular order, but to add to what you're saying, Mike, she's one of those characters that we were able to get more out of Anakin, who is arguably the central character of Star Wars, and to see something new and fresh because of her relationship with him, and not in a passive sense. It's not that she was just kind of there and she brought more out of him, but we got so much out of her to the point where, if you talk about the hero's journey, which is so central to Star Wars as well, we saw her total hero's journey, I think, with the Ahsoka series, because we saw her as, a youngling, right? In the animated series that came out not too long ago. We continue to see her, of course, in her training, and in the Ahsoka series, we saw her become this sort of enlightened one, right? As someone who has passed through this kind of trial, this something that almost like a purgation, right? And that now she's in a place where she is more at peace. Of course, we have so much more to learn about her, but I think that makes her, gives her a good case for being in the top 10 characters here. Okay, guys. So I have written down everyone's nominations. So let's go through this and try to figure out how we're going to come up with the top 10. Feel free to jump in and say, hey, we should do this or we shouldn't do that. But we do have 2 nominations for, I should say, Kanan Jarrus. We have 2 nominations for Ahsoka Tano. We have 2 nominations each for Han and Leia, technically speaking. We have Palpatine. Let's see. We've got a lot. We've got a sprinkling here now. So we've got. All right. So I'm just going to go down the order that I've got them in. We've got Obi-Wan. We have Din Djarin. We have Palpatine. We've got Anakin and Yoda. So we're at, if we count Han and Leia as 1, we're at 8 right now. We have Hera and Luke and C-3PO. So that actually makes, believe it or not, 11. Again, if you include Han and Leia as 1. What do you think of that? What are your first responses to that?
I'm glad I didn't mess this whole thing up, because the very first thing I was going to do was say that my favorite character was Snoke.
No.
And I had him ready to go here, the little bobblehead, but I decided not to officially do that. So he's not on my list. But
he's not even in my bottom list. Like,
yeah, he's somewhere below my least favorite character.
No, I mean he's not. He's not that low that he makes it into my bottom list.
Okay.
I don't have this like seething hatred for that character that some people do. But anyway,
I'm indifferent. So 11. That's not bad. I didn't think he'd.
Yeah.
And I do have some of those other, like some of the ones that one of you mentioned or the both of you mentioned. I might have further down my list, because I did put him. I was kind of thinking of a top 10, but I mean, I don't really. It's moved around a few times. So I also did have Din on there a little further down. So
okay, well, yeah, Thomas.
So I would back up Din Djarin for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an interesting list. And we're going to try and rank them 10 to 1. Like,
I don't know. We'll see.
Because
I don't know if we want a 3-hour podcast.
Yeah, because that would be very difficult.
Start flipping coins.
Okay, so a little behind the scenes here.
But I do think that's a very solid, like, top 10 list of Star Wars characters.
I don't think you'd get a lot of fan agreement for that. I don't think there's anyone on there who you would be.
Who people would be like,
no, it shouldn't be on there.
Right, yeah, like I did. I Babu Freaks on my list too.
I considered including because now I love completely puppet characters, unlike as a little kid, and I considered Grogu, but he's not on my list.
Yeah, I feel like those ones that you'd expect everybody to have, but then there's not any complete, like, off the wall that are maybe a little difficult to defend in a way. Like, you can have your favorite characters, but I feel like if you, I don't know, like, I'm gonna get myself in trouble with at least one person in the fan base when I say this, but like if I said, oh geez, like, who was Woody Harrelson's character in Solo?
Oh, that guy.
It's like a normal name. That's why I can't think of it.
It's a normal name, and I can't. Yeah,
starts with a T.
It does.
Goodness gracious.
And I can't remember what his name is. Look how forgettable he is. Tobias. Yeah.
But so, like, and hey, great. I love Woody Harrelson, but it's basically just Woody Harrelson in Star Wars. Like it, like it was just like, I feel like if you're trying to actually like claim that, like, oh, he's one of my favorite characters in all of Star Wars, like, what? I don't know if you really like Star Wars as much as Woody Harrelson. Like if Christopher Walken were in Star Wars, I think it would just be more about, I don't know.
Well, he's going to be in Dune. So.
That's true. Well, it was a little bit like Christopher Lloyd in Mandalorian, which was just, it was a fun cameo, but I just, you get into the cameo thing and it's not so much, I think, about maybe the characters. So I think the ones that we have are very organic.
Yes. Yeah.
To wherever they show up, in the series.
Definitely. I agree. Now, can we whittle it down to 10? And how are we going to do that? So basically, technically, if you want to be technical, we have 12.
We do.
We could do more combining. We could say, you know what, Anakin Skywalker is just in his own category. But I think it would be kind of weird if we said like top 10 characters and Anakin's not on there. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm going back and forth.
Yeah. And I feel like if you lump Hera and Kanan, then we start getting into like, why don't we do like
top
power
10
couples?
ships? Yeah.
Yeah. You know, like that's kind of, since I already cheated on the Han and Leia.
Yeah. So it sounds like we're going to have to take 2 off of this list.
What's funny to me is I just right away, like I just have this bias for like, well, not so much bias I'm sure I do, but isn't it interesting though? Like you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, technically 7, you know, so the overwhelming majority of these folks are at least featured in, not exclusively maybe all of them, but featured in original trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think like there's no escaping, you know, no matter how much we love new Star Wars, I think there's always this like, it's the original trilogy is like it's its own, like you can't really compete with it, I don't think, you know. So I would hesitate to remove anyone I think from the original trilogy that's on there.
Well, do we need to come up with some criteria of our own here? Like
maybe,
for example, do we want it to be more of a representative mix, or do we want to just have, you know, a criteria such as the hero's journey, such as, you know, more what they brought to Star Wars overall.
Yeah. That's an interesting, because I was wondering if you were going to say something about that earlier about like the criteria of like, yeah, like how, I don't want to say important, I can't think of the right word. How, like if you take this character out of Star Wars, how much of an impact does it have? You know, that's actually a fun whole, you could do a whole show just on that. Because didn't we talk before about that whole like the ever-going debate of whose fault, like most directly, was the rise of Palpatine?
Oh yeah,
like we've had like from a moral, like we were having fun with that. I think a couple times that's come up. Like who's most to blame for the Emperor?
I know who the fans blame, but
a lot of great debate.
Feligates, you know,
right?
That
it's like
guy.
It's like, but if Qui-Gon hadn't pushed for the whole Anakin thing, I don't know.
And Palpatine would have found a way to get emergency powers anyway.
Oh, yeah.
I almost feel like, since we mentioned before Kanan and Hera, like they are characters, while I love them to death, if you remove them, they don't break Star Wars.
Yeah, like it's not like the Battle of Endor it's not like Hera's the one who actually blew up the second Death Star. Like they mention that she's there, she's very important, but like they don't give you a lot more than that just to kind of place her in that, you know.
Because I feel like Kanan and Hera are like, out of everybody on this list here, are like everybody else, you would have no argument of like tier 1 level characters.
Even Din?
Well,
based
what
on
happens,
I think what people think now. But
like if you take Kanan out of the picture, so for because this is good. I guess this is showing that there is some good writing out there. If Kanan doesn't sacrifice himself, like be there at that moment and save Ezra specifically. Ezra's not there to prevent or to push Thrawn out of the galactic conflict, which in theory would have had a much bigger impact on the original trilogy, technically, even though that was
I was thinking more of like the main arc of Star Wars rather than the expanded material.
Well, Thrawn, I mean, if you want to go that way, Thrawn would have had imagine Thrawn against the Rebel Alliance, right? I mean,
right.
It's so tricky though, but none of that was actually part of the original movies at all.
That's kind of what I meant.
So like it's been added to fit it. Yeah, that's Oh man, that's
so what makes Din so important to the main storyline then?
He's interacted with Luke Skywalker. That's the only thing I can think of.
He's interacted with Luke, but how much has he really impacted Luke?
And I think like he was the if
he
I
took
had
away
to pick
his first student.
that too, but probably if there's anybody on my list, I tried not to pick people because of rule of cool. But if there is one person on that list who might reflect that, it might be Din.
That's fair.
So that's like if we're going to eliminate people based on, just rule of cool, then Din might go.
I don't want to agree, but I do tend to agree.
Yeah.
Up against these, like you got, like I can't. I would have to just looking at like Star Wars in my life, I would have to sacrifice Din before Han.
Right. Oh yeah.
And of course.
Like,
well, we won't ask Kylo who he would sacrifice first, because I think we all know the answer to that. Oh my goodness.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and say Din's off the list. Okay. Let's take some pressure off here. So we've got one more that we could take off, or we could go the way of Mike Creavey and say, hey, Han and Leia. Which, okay, listen, you could argue. Now, you could argue that their relationship is a character in and of itself.
Unlike that.
And Han is also like, there's Han, but then there's Han and Leia.
Right.
There's Leia, but then there's Han and Leia.
I'm okay with that, considering I think that the argument has been made very well in multiple places that the Millennium Falcon is a character.
He's a character, yeah.
So, like the Enterprise, like you can't, like, I need this ship. Yeah. Oh man, that's a good point. Han and Leia. Well, because I think Han and Chewie are a thing too, and that's a whole separate dynamic.
True.
Yes, yeah.
Darn.
So,
well, I think we can all agree that we can't take either one of them off the top 10
list.
Yeah. So,
well, I mean, if we look at each one of these, so again, we've got Kanan, Ahsoka, Han and Leia, Obi-Wan, Palpatine, Anakin, Yoda, Hera, Luke, C-3PO. If you had to take somebody else off, who would it be? Maybe that'll help us discern. Personally, I would say Hera.
I hate to say Hera, but I feel like in honesty I have to.
I would say her or Kanan, and I can't really decide which. I'm just trying to think of this.
I just think
fundamental.
Unfortunately, Hera's story arc, at least really the main challenge that we see her overcome, besides like the family dynamic type stuff and what comes with her job, is that the Calicori, is that what it was called? That whole story arc.
Yeah. And her story's not done yet.
True.
So I think that we can be safe in taking her off the list, because we haven't seen her complete arc yet.
Right.
Okay. Fair. Okay. So we could say as of this date and time.
Yeah.
We have Kanan, Ahsoka, Han, Leia, Obi-Wan, Palpatine, Anakin, Yoda, Luke, and C-3PO.
I think that's a pretty solid 10.
Okay.
I think so too.
Well, I would say that's our top 10. And I think if we wanted to rank them 1 to 10, we would be here for another hour.
Yes.
That's what I was going to say. We're not going to try that, I don't think. But
So I think it'd be really fun if we gave our honorable mentions. Thomas, who was one of your honorable mentions maybe that hasn't been mentioned? We'll go with that. We'll say any honorable mentions that we have that weren't nominated for the top 10. What was one from your list?
Well, one from my list was, I can only pick one for this list, Chewbacca. I like, and it was kind of that thing where it's like, you can't have Han Solo without Chewbacca. So I just like that Chewbacca is the loyal friend who's always there for you, and who doesn't. And they've even commented sort of on this in Star Wars, where he's that loyal friend, but he doesn't get the spotlight. He doesn't get the medal until episode 9.
Right. He's very humble.
Yeah, he is a solid support character. He is there to support the main heroes in their mission and not really get a lot of the limelight or a lot of the credit that he even deserves. In that way, he's a lot like Samwise from the Lord of the Rings, you know, like where would they be without Chewie always fixing the ship? You know, like
absolutely.
Or fixing C-3PO when he gets blown to bits in that one part.
I love as they're about to get blown to bits in Solo, and Chewie just stands up and starts flicking switches, and Han's like, "Where'd you learn to fly?" And he's like, 190 years old.
He's like, "You look good." Yeah, he's
like just very casually throws it. And by the way, it's funny you mentioned that there, Thomas, because Sam is my favorite Lord of the Rings character. I have a little bobblehead or whatever it's on, a Funko Pop or something. One of those ones that's like in the mystery package. You don't know what it is.
Oh, yeah.
So I have one of them of him on my backpack.
Nice.
It's like he's got my back.
Literally, yeah.
Yep.
Well, Mike, if you had to just pull out one of your special honorable mentions, who would that be?
I'm excited because I wrote him down after we started tonight. He popped on there, but Cobb Vanth.
Ooh.
I considered putting him on my honorable mentions list.
Yep.
I did.
And that's been one of the biggest sort of bummers is having to wait. And there's so many different factors involved, of course, with you know, strikes and changes of mind at Lucasfilm, whatever the case is, all that stuff that goes on behind the scenes. But seeing him in the end credits of Book of Boba Fett, you know, like that little tease, and then like, okay, like where are we going to drop him back in? It's a bit like when Vision like resurrected in WandaVision and then disappears off into where, you know, and I think Ryan George, the guy who does those pitch meetings on YouTube, when he was talking about WandaVision, and he has something in there where he's like, where did Vision go? And he's like, off into the MCU to be retrieved at a future date. And that's how I felt a little bit with like Cobb Vanth. Like,
I hope so. I hope he comes back.
I think they were setting him up to be the new Marshal, right? Like in or the new what's it called? The new what was the guy's name? The mayor or whatever it was, like of Mos Espa. I'm forgetting now.
The Ithorian mayor guy?
Yeah, either him or the new or I'm trying to think, because didn't Boba Fett make Fennec like his marshal? I forget if it was marshal. I forget the term that was used, but you know, the new
his
sheriff
like
or something
number 2.
like that.
Yeah, but Cobb was already he was marshal of Mos Pelgo. Right? Yeah.
Freetown, right? Yeah.
Freetown, right? Yeah.
It's such a wild Western thing. But yeah, no, I love him. I love that they just had the boldness to just basically say, hey, Timothy Olyphant's like awesome at Westerns. Several of them. Let's just have him do that here.
And I love his very unique blaster.
Yes.
It's very like Old West, like six shooter.
I love that when they brought him back, you know, in Book of Boba Fett then after his Mandalorian intro, and when he has that run-in, it's one of my favorite scenes. Yes. Or any of those new shows, the run-in with the Pikes runners, at the beginning of that episode, and how he goes over and like, you know, like they all run off and he's got that box of spice, you know, and the guy just said, this is worth more than your whole town. And he's like, maybe I'll retire early, you know, and they leave. But he looks at it, but kind of like the incorruptible thing too, like with Obi-Wan, he just like kicks it over, you know, like, and you see that resolve that, you know, no, I'm not doing that. So, yeah, I love him. And of course, Angela, you know, his, we talked a lot back then, right, about the showdown at the end of that episode, you know, so it's so cool.
Yeah.
And I'm thoroughly convinced, that we'll
Robo-Cobb. He's going to have like, you know,
oh my gosh,
prosthetics.
Yeah.
Yeah, more action figures to come.
They had to give him something after he gave up the armor.
Yeah,
like.
Well, my honorable mention, and I'm sad that he hasn't come up yet. And for all of you Mandos out there, gotta be Boba Fett, right? I mean,
he was on my list. Yep.
Definitely worth at least an honorable mention. I would say he's probably top 20 characters in Star Wars. He, again, he's one of those interesting characters that we get a childhood to later adulthood arc. And look at how much growth and change he's gone through as a character. I mean, goodness gracious. He went from being the little sidekick for his dad, in the in the ship,
Dad.
right? To being this like bloodthirsty, vengeful child, who wrangles up a gang and is doing various bounty hunting jobs around the galaxy to suddenly a religious convert, like, I mean, in the Book of Boba Fett, it's just so wild to see the scope and the span of this character. So
that vesting scene where he gets his Tusken robes and he makes his gaffy stick is one of my favorite things to come out of contemporary Star Wars.
It was very cool.
I really liked that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. Okay, guys. Well, real quick, no more explanations, maybe like one sentence explanation, but was there anyone else on your other honorable mentions? Thomas, go ahead and give them all the rest to us.
All right. This was kind of a cheat because it was 2, but Jyn and Galen Erso.
Okay.
I love that Galen Erso finally provides that explanation for why there was such a glaring flaw on the Death Star. And he gave his life for the rebellion. And his daughter did as well. And then I've got Rex.
Yes. He almost made my honorable mention.
He's like Chewie in that he's that great supporting character, but he also becomes a hero in his own right. And my final one is one of my new favorites who's kind of been, growing on me a lot, and that's Hunter. I like Hunter a lot, and I like the growth that we've already seen from him. And you've got the bandana. That's awesome.
Mike pulled out the bandana. That's so cool.
Is really cool.
Yeah. It's got so many random things around here.
Yeah.
Hunter's awesome. Yeah.
But I like that he's making that transition from just a soldier to then soldier of fortune, but also kind of knowing that he has to be a dad to this crew and especially to Omega. Yeah.
And the way that they did that tension, at the end of this most recent season with like this push for some of them to go into this bigger fight. But he's like, but we got the kid, this, and how hard that is for him. Yeah. Awesome.
All right. Well, is that it for you, Thomas?
Yep.
Okay, Mike, how about you? Lightning round here.
Well, and I just my only ones to keep the Bad Batch theme going. I have Omega.
Nice.
It was pretty fun. Awesome. I've loved her growth. And I also wrote down my she's now my way into a New Zealand or like Kiwi kind of accent, because when she's riding on Wrecker's shoulder and they have the Mantel mix.
Yeah.
And he asks her, how's the Mantel mix? And she goes, better than ever. And it's like, better than ever. Like, what? So anyway, so that's fun. And then my last one is just K2SO.
Yeah.
Because I always, he's just so awesome. I love him. And, I think we could all agree he's probably one of, at least, if not the most like high ranking thing that people are looking forward to for Andor season 2. And the way they teased not him, right, in season 1.
And he goes out like a boss.
Oh, yeah.
Which is great.
I think he's the only main character in Rogue One who doesn't blow up.
A lot of sparks come out of him, but he doesn't blow up. Yeah.
But not strictly speaking, doesn't explode. So, yeah.
I never thought about it that way.
Death by explosion, which is funny because earlier when they say about like what happens if we crash into the shield or whatever, then he's just like, you get like, I forget his exact wording, but you'll get sucked into the
he's like, you'll all die in the vacuum of space.
I won't
because I'm a droid. Survive in space.
Yeah. Or like, I'm there for you too, Jyn. It's like Cassian said I had to be. It's just like, so
you are being rescued. Please do not resist.
Yeah, congratulations. So yeah, he's great.
All right. Well, is that it for you?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, my honorable mentions, you guys, I'm kind of shocked that we didn't put R2-D2 on the list, but here we are. R2-D2 saved the day pretty much in every movie, almost.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird that he's not on the list, but I'm giving him an honorable mention.
We could have put him with C-3PO as like a duo.
We could have.
Yeah.
I think that's a show idea we had out there for a while. Like the idea of like just going down trying to come up with a list of all of the times that one or two of the droids like literally saved the entire galaxy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like R2 in the trash compactor, like just like everything.
Yeah. Except that one fail that he has where he can't tell the difference between a power socket and a computer terminal.
Oh, yeah.
He gets electrocuted.
Oh my gosh.
And my other honorable mention that was not mentioned is Maul, an amazing character.
He was
fantastic arc. I love it.
Yeah.
Maul's one of those characters for me where I don't see it. That what other people see in him. I don't. And I'm not denying what other people see in him. It just for whatever reason for me it doesn't click.
It doesn't do it for you.
Yeah. But I understand why. It's just that for me, I'm just like, oh, Maul again. Okay. Like, I don't hate him. I'm just like, okay, it's Darth Maul.
I think what solidifies his honorable mention is his time as Maul. Not Darth Maul, but truly as Maul, and especially his legendary end.
Yeah, that was really cool. Yeah. I will say that. What is Avenge Us?
Yeah.
He says, yeah.
And by the way, for any young and impressionable listeners out there, if you ever run into a scary hooded figure in the dark who tells you to call him Old Master, don't. Like, just, he's probably a bad guy. Like, I'm just throwing that out there.
And don't tell him your name's Jabba.
Yeah, right. What's your name? What's your
least
name?
believable
Jabba.
option.
Like, gracious, like say Kanan, like something. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Yeah, picks the name of the most famous crime lord in the entire galaxy, like Jabba. Like, okay. My name's Al Capone. Like okay.
Vincent Van Gogh.
Yeah, right.
Well, would you all in the audience listening out there, would you have put Jabba the Hutt on the top 10 characters list?
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
Would you have put maybe another one of my honorable mentions? Could have been Asajj Ventress. That was another really good character that I like. So many characters out there. We want to hear from you. Who is your top 10? And also, if you have any Star Wars questions or comments, we'll love to hear them. So send us an email, starwars@sqpn.com, or find us on Facebook, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. You can leave a comment there, or simply write to us on X @SQPN. And if you want to get real deep divey, you can join us in Discord. We have a Discord server. Just go to sqpn.com/Discord and join fans of this StarQuest show and others in our online community. It is tons of fun. And stay tuned for more great Star Wars discussions. Subscribe to Secrets of Star Wars in your favorite podcast app or on the YouTube channel for StarQuest Media. And of course, you can review all of our previous episodes at sqpn.com/Star Wars. So until next time, Thomas Salerno, thank you for taking part in this interesting experiment today.
Thank you, Angela. May the Force be with you.
And with your spirit. And Mike Creavey, thank you so much for joining us. It was great to have you on the show today.
No, my pleasure. Thanks so much.
And once again, I'm the one in the middle, the Bendu, Angela Sealana. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Star Wars on StarQuest.
Here's another podcast on the StarQuest network you're sure to enjoy: The Secrets of Movies and TV Shows. Find it wherever fine podcasts are found, or at sqpn.com/secrets.